Imagine, just picture this for a second. These beautiful, lush green fields, crops just swaying, completely chemical free, you know, that postcard image.
Yeah, you can almost smell the earth.
Exactly, but then you compare that to the reality for a lot of Indian farmers trying to actually do that, trying to go organic, they're hitting so many
It's
roadblocks.
a tough situation.
It really is, and that's what we're digging into today. India's big ambition for organic farming and the very real hurdles slowing things down.
It's quite the paradox right from the start, isn't it? Because India has this huge number, I mean, the largest number globally, of organic farmers, something like 4.43 million.
Wow, 4.43 million. That sounds massive.
It does. But then you look at the land, the actual farmland dedicated to organic, and it's a tiny fraction of the world's total, only about 2.59%.
2.59. So 1.5 million hectares out of a global 58 million.
Exactly. So you have all these farmers, but not nearly as much land as you expect. It makes you ask, why? What's the disconnect here? What's holding India back from its organic potential?
Precisely. It feels like having I don't know, a huge team, but only a few players on the field. So our mission today is really to unpack this. We want to understand the appeal of organic, sure, but also the real struggles farmers face making that switch.
And what the government's doing or maybe not doing enough of.
Right. And where those efforts might be falling short. We want to get clarity on why this sort of noble goal sometimes feels almost like a pipe dream for so many farmers on the ground.
Okay, so maybe let's start by pinning down what we mean by organic farming in India, based on what we've looked at. Essentially, it boils down to no synthetic stuff, right?
Yeah, no synthetic fertilizers, no chemical pesticides, no GMOs.
Instead, it's about working with nature, using things like cow dung, compost, traditional methods to keep the soil healthy and pests in check.
It's a definite move away from the chemical-heavy farming that became so common. And, India does have success stories. You mentioned Sikkim earlier.
Ah, yes, Sikkim became the first fully organic state back in 2016. A real trailblazer, you could say.
Yeah.
An eco-warrior state almost.
And it's important to remember, like you said, it's not totally new everywhere. In places like the Northeast, tribal areas, the islands, organic practices were kind of the norm for a long time.
That's a key point. For many there, it wasn't really a transition because they hadn't heavily adopted chemicals in the first place. It was just, well, how they farmed.
Which makes sense. Easier to continue than to reverse course.
Yeah.
But for the vast majority who did adopt chemical farming, switching back or switching to organic, that's a whole different ballgame.
It really is. It's a major shift, not just a minor tweak.
And that initial changeover, that transition phase,
Yeah.
that seems to be where a lot of the pain points lie.
Definitely. There's this mandatory detoxification period for the soil, usually around 3 years.
3 years where the land is recovering.
Pretty much. It's adjusting after maybe decades of chemical use. And during that time, yields often dip, sometimes significantly, maybe 20–30%.
Ouch.
We saw that in Sikkim. Rice held up okay, apparently, but wheat and maize yields took a hit, partly because farmers adjusted how much land they cultivated while things recovered. The soil's biology is basically resetting itself.
So farmers are immediately looking at less income. That's a huge hurdle right there. But it's not just the lower yields, is it? There's the cost of getting certified organic, too.
Oh, absolutely. The certification costs can be, well, surprisingly steep, especially for smallholder farmers.
And they make up the vast majority, right? Something like 86%.
That's the figure, yes, 86%. So imagine for a small farmer, the cost of getting that organic label could actually be more than, say, a family wedding. It's a huge financial burden.
That's incredible. It really puts it in perspective. It's not just a fee, it's a barrier.
It is. And this often comes from, a system that's quite complex, bureaucratic, and maybe not designed with millions of tiny farms in mind.
So they go through all that, pay the money, potentially get lower yields for 3 years. And then what? Is there even a guarantee they'll get a better price?
That's the kicker. There often isn't. No guaranteed premium price. So they take all the risk, do all the extra work, pay the fees, and might end up selling their produce at the same price as conventional stuff.
That must be incredibly demoralizing. You mentioned Sanchmaya Lepcha in Sikkim?
Yes, farming an acre organically but earning a pretty low income. It just shows that commitment doesn't automatically equal profit in this space yet.
So that uncertainty, it really dampens the enthusiasm to switch, doesn't it?
Hugely. Now, the government has recognized this. They've launched schemes. There's the Paramparat Krishi Vikas Yojana, PKVY.
BKVY, right. And one for the Northeast.
Yes, MOVCD, NER, Mission Organic Value Chain Development for Northeast Region. Both started around 2015.
And more recently, there's another one.
The National Mission on Natural Farming, NMNF, that one has a really big target. 10 million farmers into chemical-free farming by 2025.
10 million, wow. So what kind of support do these schemes actually offer, like on the ground?
Well, PKVY, for example, works with farmer clusters. It gives financial help, about Rs 50,000 per hectare over 3 years. And the good chunk of that, Rs 31,000, goes directly to the farmers. It also encourages group certification, the PGS system.
Okay, and MOVCD-NER is focused on the Northeast and exports.
Correct. Tailored for that region's potential.
And NMNF aims wider. But you mentioned a disconnect.
Yeah, it can sometimes feel a bit like giving someone a fancy tractor, but no driving lessons or fuel. The schemes exist, the money's allocated, but the practical guidance, the hand-holding, maybe isn't always there.
I see. And the funding itself, how does it compare to, say, conventional farming support?
That's where it gets really stark. Look at fertilizer subsidies. In 2022-23, it was a massive Rs, 1.64 lakh crore.
1.64 LHC roar.
Yep. Compare that to the NMNF budget, about Rs 4,600 crore spread over 6 years.
Wow. Okay. The numbers speak for themselves there, don't they? It shows where the financial weight still is.
It certainly does. It makes it hard to argue there's a level playing field when the subsidies are so skewed towards chemical inputs.
And you mentioned infrastructure earlier, like bio-input centers. Are those lagging too?
Seems so. These centers are crucial for giving farmers access to the natural fertilizers and pest controls they need. But the rollout has been slow. The numbers promised often haven't appeared on the ground.
So it feels like all these pieces point towards a bigger issue? Like a missing blueprint?
I think that's a good way to put it. There isn't really a clear, step-by-step national roadmap for this massive transition. It's like telling someone to climb Everest but not giving them a map or ropes or telling them which route to take.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Farmers are left asking really basic practical questions. How do I actually make these biofertilizers effectively? Where do I get good quality organic seeds I can trust? And crucially, who is going to buy my produce at a fair price?
Without clear answers, it's a huge leap of faith.
An incredibly risky one. And then you layer on the bureaucracy of certification we talked about.
Right. It's not just the cost, but the hassle.
Exactly. Getting certified through agencies like APITA means paperwork, inspections, complexity. It's daunting for anyone, let alone a small farmer.
You mentioned PGS as an alternative.
Yes, the participatory guarantee system under PKVY. It's cheaper, based on peer review, and trust within a farmer group, but still takes significant time and effort organizing meetings, record keeping.
Time farmers might not have.
Precisely. And the real sting is when uncertified but genuinely organic produce gets lumped in with conventional stuff at the market. No premium, no recognition for the extra effort.
So they face all the hurdles, do the work, and potentially get nothing extra for it. I can see why hesitation is the default. And then even if they do get certified, finding the right market. That's another challenge.
A major one. The market linkage piece is still quite underdeveloped, connecting farmers, especially small ones, to consumers willing to pay that premium. It's tough.
Even in Sikkim, you said.
Even in Sikkim. Farmers there compete with cheaper, conventionally grown vegetables trucked in from Siliguri in West Bengal.
So the local organic farmers are being undercut.
In many cases, yes. We heard about Sunita Rai at the soaring organic market, operating on really thin margins.
And middlemen probably take a slice too.
Often, yes. Multiple intermediaries can eat into the farmer's share significantly. The government tried to address this with the Yaviketi portal, meant to link farmers and buyers directly.
But it hasn't quite taken off.
Reports suggest it's faced challenges with user-friendliness and uptake. It hasn't become the effective bridge it was intended to be, at least not yet.
So even the designated success story of Sikkim has these underlying cracks.
It does. It's a commendable achievement, no doubt. The government there did provide support, transport subsidies, setting up organic outlets, cracking down on fake organic produce, training farmers.
But still, farmers complain about yields sometimes and the reliance on imports.
Yes, farmers still talk about lower yields compared to what they might get conventionally elsewhere, and the fact that even in peak season, maybe only half the produce in a market like Soaring is locally sourced from Sikkim. That tells you something.
Right.
There are even whispers, unconfirmed of course, that some farmers might discreetly use inorganic stuff just to boost yields. It shows the economic pressure they're under.
So framing it from the farmer's perspective, it's a really complex choice, almost like choosing between two paths with very different risks.
You can almost frame it like an arranged marriage versus a love marriage, perhaps. Inorganic farming is the known quantity, maybe not perfect, maybe even harmful long-term, with soil degradation, water pollution, health risks.
We know about the issues like pesticide links to health problems, land degradation in places like Punjab.
Exactly. But it offers predictability, established supply chains, often quicker returns. Organic farming is the love marriage, potentially much healthier, better for the environment, more resilient to climate change, potentially empowering for women.
There was a report showing increased income and decision-making power for women in organic farming.
Yes, a 2018 report highlighted that. But it comes with huge upfront uncertainties. The transition risks, the costs, the market gamble.
And that trust issue you mentioned, the farmer using his own seeds.
Pushpalal Sharma in Sikkim, yeah. Saving his own seeds because he didn't fully trust the quality or suitability of the government-supplied ones. That speaks volumes about the need for reliability in the support system.
Okay, let's shift to the other side of the equation. The consumers. Is the demand strong enough to pull more farmers towards organic?
Well, there's definitely growing awareness in cities. People are more conscious about health and environment. And yes, some are willing to pay more, maybe 10%, maybe up to 40% more.
If they trust it's genuinely organic.
That's the key. If they trust it and if they can easily find it. The market is growing. Exports were around Rs, 7,000 crore, domestic maybe Rs, 4,400 crore back in 2021. But that's still a small slice of the total agricultural pie.
And the issue of mixing organic and conventional produce in local mandis persists.
Very much so, which kills the premium price incentive right there.
Exports are doing okay, though. Flax seeds, sesame.
Yes, exports to places like the US, EU, Canada are significant for certain commodities. But often the small farmers growing in aren't the ones reaping the biggest rewards from that export market.
Are there any initiatives trying to bridge that gap? Directly linking farmers to big buyers?
There are some, like a Karnataka Farmers Federation selling directly to Big Basket, or an Andhra Pradesh government MOU with them. But these are still relatively limited in scale compared to the millions of farmers out there.
And urban consumers, despite growing awareness, are still price sensitive and maybe a bit skeptical.
Definitely. Price is always a factor. And the skepticism about labels is real, partly because everyone knows fake organic products are out there. Building that trust is crucial.
It sounds like a complex web of interconnected challenges. You mentioned earlier we should look at other countries. Any warnings for India?
Sri Lanka. That's the big one. Their 2021 decision to ban chemical fertilizers overnight. It was intended to push the country fully organic very quickly.
But it didn't go well.
It was disastrous, frankly. Yields collapsed, rice production dropped 20%, tea exports tanked. It led to severe food shortages, protests, massive economic problems.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that you absolutely cannot force this kind of shift overnight. It needs careful planning, support, infrastructure, a gradual transition, not a sudden shock to the system.
A very sobering lesson indeed. Okay, so amidst all these difficulties, let's circle back to something positive you touched on, the role of women.
Yes, that's a really important dimension. Organic farming often seems to provide significant opportunities for rural women. It can mean more economic independence, leadership roles in farmer groups, a bigger say in how household income is spent.
You mentioned millet production in Odisha.
Right, women-led groups growing organic millets for the public distribution system. That's great for sustainable agriculture and nutrition. The 2018 report confirmed this trend, increased income, more decision-making power for women involved in organic farming.
But they still face the same core challenges: access to training, markets, inputs.
Absolutely, all the same challenges as men, often magnified by existing gender inequalities or additional burdens. So support needs to be mindful of that too.
Okay, so pulling all this together, if India wants to move towards this organic nirvana, what needs to happen? What are the key solutions?
It has to be a multi-pronged strategy. First, that clear national roadmap we talked about. Detailed, region-specific plans, not just broad statements.
Practical steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then, actively support organic inputs. Subsidize them, maybe, and definitely expand the network of bio-input centers so farmers can actually get what they need easily and affordably.
And certification.
It needs to be simpler, cheaper. Expand the PGS system. Maybe use technology like blockchain for better transparency and traceability to build that consumer trust.
What about markets?
Strengthen farmer-producer organizations, FPOs, and cooperatives. Make platforms like Avocado genuinely user-friendly and effective. Partner with e-commerce. Tackle the middleman issues somehow to ensure farmers get a fairer price.
And training?
Crucial. But it needs to be practical, localized, hands-on, not just lectures. Use diverse methods. Learn from what's worked in states like Sikkim, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh. Adapt their successes.
And finally, the consumer piece.
Educate them. Build awareness about why organic costs, what it does, what the real value is. Use campaigns, clear labeling, traceability to fight the fakes and build confidence.
It sounds like a comprehensive overhaul, really, not just tinkering around the edges.
It has to be, because the stakes are high, but so are the potential benefits. Think about the environment. Organic farming helps restore soil fertility, crucial when so much land is degraded.
Reduces water pollution too, right?
Significantly, and lowers carbon emissions from agriculture. There are studies showing organic soil sequester more carbon. Plus, it can create more jobs in rural areas, maybe 30% more employment per hectare compared to conventional.
But can it feed everyone? India's population is still growing.
That's the big question, isn't it? Feeding 1.5 billion people sustainably by 2030. Maybe purely organic isn't the sole answer for all food production right now. Hybrid models might be needed, but organic farming absolutely has a critical role to play in building a more resilient, sustainable food system.
So the urgency is there. The goals are ambitious, but the plan needs to catch up.
Precisely. The government's targets are commendable, but they need that concrete, farmer-centric plan to become reality.
Right. So wrapping this up, it feels like India has this strong desire, this vision for organic farming, but it's caught in this tangle of, well, lack of clear direction, money issues, red tape, and shaky markets.
That sums it up well.
Yet the potential upside, healthier food, a healthier planet, better lives for farmers, it's huge. It feels like the future really hinges on moving past just talking about it and actually putting practical farmer-first solutions in place.
Otherwise, it does risk just being a nice idea, a fleeting trend, rather than the agricultural transformation it could be.
Absolutely. And maybe that leaves us and you, our listener, with something to think about. Given all these complexities, what kind of sustainable farming initiatives really make sense? And perhaps how can we as individuals or communities play a role in supporting this shift?
It's definitely food for thought, because building a better food system, it really involves all of us.